Time for another board game review, and this time we have the game DC deck building game Rivals, The Flash versus Reverse Flash. This was sent to me by Cryptozoic Entertainment and is designed by Nathaniel Yamaguchi. The ultimate high-speed battle. Recruit unique speedsters and rogues with the ultimate goal of defeating your iconic foe 3 times. So this is another game in the Cerberus engine, the deck building engine. I reviewed the DC deck building game base game way back in episode 15. You can go check that out to get the idea of the base rules. I'm not going to be going over the rules again. I'll just be going over what this one does differently in this 2-player version of the game. So this is a 2-player version of the DC deck building game. The classic, get power to buy cards and so on. But the difference is that this is one-on-one and you are actually attacking each other. So each of you plays as either the Flash or Reverse Flash, and you actually have powers that change depending on the sort of lives that you lose in the game. So at the beginning, you each have access to your 9 cost powers, then your 12 cost, and then 15 cost. Now, how the game differs, you do start with your classic, punches and vulnerabilities. But when you draw your hand, at the start of a turn, you have to decide if you're going to do a normal turn and buy cards from the lineup, or if you're going to confront your opponent to defeat their current character. So if you take a normal turn, classic, this is 4 cost, you have 4 power, buy the card, add it to your discard pile. There are super speeds, I'll explain what confrontation means, but, classic cards that you can buy on your turn. Now, instead of doing a normal turn, you can do what's called a confrontation, where you attempt to defeat your opponent, and you're trying to do this 3 times to win the game. So if my enemy is Reverse Flash, I gotta get 9 power. You can't beat 2 lives in 1 turn. You can't be like, I have 22 power, I'm gonna take out 2 of them. You can only hit them 1 life at a time. If you decide to confront your opponent, you cannot buy any cards that turn. You can only choose to confront them. Also, if there's a chance that you can amass enough power to beat your opponent's cost. Several cards, like I mentioned before, have keyword confrontation, and these only go into effect when you are doing a confrontation on your turn. In this case, the super speed, you may return this card to the stack. If you do draw a card, then discard a card. Now this card here has the keyword block. What block means is if a foe confronting you has played all their cards, you may discard cards with block on them to increase your character's cost. The value, in this case 3, is how much it goes up by. And then any text after the block is only resolved if you discard it to increase your cost while you're being confronted. In this case, Vibe here blocks 3 and put up to 2 cards with cost 1 or greater from the destroyed pile into the lineup. I also forgot to mention before, they have symbols here to tell you if this card goes well with the Flash or Reverse Flash. And so, if you manage to have enough power, you take out their life, and then they move to their next power. And if it's their 3rd life, you win the game. Once you finish, like any other turn, you discard your cards and draw 5. Now the game ends immediately when either you defeat your opponent's last character card, or if you are unable to fill the 5 slots in the lineup. So if you run out of cards in the lineup, the game will also end. In that case, you'll just add up your victory points on the character cards you took, and whoever has the most is the winner. Let's go through some of the new keywords. Here is XS, and there is a Speedster keyword. What Speedster means is it's only active if you drew a card earlier that turn. In this case, Speedster, you may discard a card. If you do play a card from the lineup with cost 4 or less at the end of the turn, return it. So, the Flash all specializes in a lot of these. Like if you can draw a card earlier in the turn, then all these Speedster effects happen. Weaknesses are a little bit different in this version of the game. In this case, you play them before playing other cards. And what they do is they are ongoing, meaning they stay in front of you, and they subtract 1 from your character's cost. If your character gets hit, then your weaknesses get destroyed. But yeah, so the more weaknesses you get, the lower your cost becomes for your opponent to try to hit you. And that's pretty much it. Otherwise, it's the same classic, buy cards to beat each other. Let's go through the powers here. The Flash, you pay 1 less to buy your first Speedster card each turn. Once during your turn, discard a superpower, draw 2 cards and discard 2. His next power is +1 power for each hero you play. The second time you play a superpower each turn, put the top card of the main deck or a card with cost 1 or greater from the destroyed pile into the lineup. And here, his final one is a confrontation ability. Each time you play a different superpower this turn, draw a card, then discard a card. Each time you play a hero this turn, +1 power and put a card with cost 1 or greater from the destroyed pile on top of the main deck. Reverse Flash, his first power is the first time you play a villain during your turn, destroy a card in the lineup and draw a card. Here, once during your turn, play a card from the destroyed pile with a VP value less than the number of villains you control, then destroy the card. And then his final ability is Confrontation. The first time you play a villain this turn, destroy the top card of the main deck. Once this turn, +1 power for each card with cost 1 or greater you played this turn. That shares a type with the destroyed card. So he's all about destroying as many cards as you can. There are certain cards you can buy that also benefit from that. Meanwhile, the Flash is about those speedster cards and also restoring cards back to the lineup. I'm gonna grab some random ones to show you here for different examples. Firestorm, +2 power. You may destroy a card you control. If you do, gain a card from the destroyed pile with the same cost as the destroyed card. And block 3, you may destroy a card you control or in your discard pile. Here's Accelerated Healing, +2 power. If you control a speedster card, you may destroy a card you control. Heat Wave, destroy a card in your hand and in the lineup. Confrontation, if you play or have played another villain this turn, +2 power. And the Flash Ring, +2 power, put a speedster card from your discard pile on top of your deck. And that's it. Otherwise, it's just a one-on-one version of the game where you're just trying to hit each other. And that's the game. So this is the first time for me playing a specific 2-player Rivals version of the DC deck building game. And surprisingly, this one's actually kind of a misfire for me. I actually prefer playing the regular DC deck building game with 2 players, so I figured this would be, obviously a shoo-in. But there were a lot of things about this that I actually find kind of annoying. First off, because you have 2 players and you're essentially playing with a mini lineup deck that is made up of 2 separate decks because the cards are labeled with the symbols for which one suits which character better, it isn't actually very interesting choosing which cards to buy because most of the cards are clearly geared for Flash or Reverse Flash. They both benefit from very specific cards, so if you're Flash, you're like, well, I guess I gotta buy this, I guess I gotta buy this. The fun of a deck building game for me usually is having to construct my own strategy, or at least having a variety of choices pathwise. But in this game, if you're playing as Flash, it's like, well, I guess I'll just buy the Flash cards, I'll buy the speedsters and heroes, and I kind of know what I have to do. And then there's the whole confrontation thing, which I have to say, I played this with someone who had never played any version of the DC deck building game before, and they were constantly getting confused by the terminology of confront and block versus attack and defend. For those of you who have played the DC deck building game, there's attack cards that can do like a negative effect on your opponent, and they can defend. But there's confront as well, and block, and attack and defend. Way too similar wording on this. It's very clumsy. Also, quite frankly, I don't like the whole, you have to choose between a regular turn or confrontation. In the original game, it's fun just building up power and going, ooh, I've got enough. All right, I'm going to hit my opponent or hit the bad guy or whatever. Whereas this is like, okay, you got to commit. Oh, whoops, your opponent just happens to have enough block in their hand. Then this whole turn where you had all this awesome combos and all this power, yeah, nothing happens, fuck you. It's very deflating. Not to mention that blocking is way too easy. I discard a card and I get +3. You have a card that says block? Cool, you block it. It's not that easy to build up power in this game. And blocking 4 cost with just 1 card in hand is ridiculous. I feel like the game needed something like, okay, you fail the confrontation, but now, the opponent's defense goes down by 1 for the next one. That's something I liked with the weaknesses in this, in that they kind of weaken the opponent as you go. But anyone who knows the base game knows there's no guarantee you'll be able to give your opponent weaknesses. It's only if you happen to have cards that can give them weaknesses. So, also the weaknesses go away immediately once you get a hit in, so it just feels like a lot of, you're building up all this weakness and stuff, and then suddenly it's gone. I don't know. This is also on top of the fact that the game ends too early. The Reverse Flash, his whole thing is destroying cards in the lineup. And the game ends if you run out of cards in the lineup. So instead of this kind of like fun duel where you're like knocking each other's lives out and ooh, who's gonna knock each other out first, it often just ends in a fizzle. Oh, it's done already because the Reverse Flash destroyed so many cards and we're done. I feel like if anything, this game would be more interesting if there was something like a tug of war. Like, okay, the Reverse Flash is trying to destroy the cards and end the game early. The Flash has to restore the cards and beat him. That's kind of an interesting concept, and maybe that's what they were going for. But it doesn't really feel that way. It's just, oh, because I destroyed cards, we're done. It just feels very anticlimactic. So, as someone who generally enjoys these games in the Cerberus system, I was pretty disappointed with this. I don't know how the other Rivals installments stack up. Maybe they have, different keywords that make it a little more fun. But I think, or I hope they're more entertaining than this one, because I was pretty disappointed.